global, right?
Global, oh, global.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see people in Ethiopia live streaming to Banks Peninsula.
We're very popular.
Right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the 25th of July. Can I get everyone please to cut it here?
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia makina kina ki uta, kia mātaratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atakura, e tio, e huka, e hauhu, tihei, mo.
Kia ora. Thank you. I do have an apology for absence for today from Andrew Turner. Now someone move that, please. By Tyrone and seconded by Ruben. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. My declarations of interest, I can take those throughout the meeting. Confirmation of previous minutes. Okay, so that was moved by Scott, seconded by Ruben. Nothing to discuss. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Right. Forum this morning, and we do have a few people joining us. I'll start in the order that I've got here. So, Josh, I know you've joined us in the room. Here. Yeah, you're more than welcome to join us at the table. Great. And I'll just remind everyone throughout the meeting that if we can speak up, the speaker is in the centre of the room. So,
it's all right if I take off my mask while I speak.
yes, my name's Josh. So
More
welcome
comfortable.
to the
It's not
table.
this criminal that way.
Oh, yeah, well, it's a bit
See what you look like.
That's better, isn't it? Yeah, I've got quite a few slides here, so I'm going to go through it pretty quick. Some of them are informative, some of them are just to point something out. I think you all have copies. So. Just want to thank you for hearing from me again today, and Ruben, especially want to thank you for your continued engagement with us. It's really been appreciated. When I moved into this community back in 2019, I heard a lot of complaints about the unauthorized work that was going on. And so I started looking into, well, how do we get authorization? Currently, we can't. The RMC stands in our way of progress. And the only things that are currently moving forward are the elements that originate from this board. So today I'm going to focus there. Starting with a quick recap, and then there's 3 points where I think I can offer you some perspective or clarification. And that's on the upgrade to the diagonal track, the extension, which logically follows the maintenance of the existing tracks. So from 2019, I think we all expected that we would see some progress within these 3 years, but to date, not a single element from this plan. Can I go to the next one? That one? Yeah. So this shows all the different elements that existed in that plan. Not a single one has moved forward so far. There was a brief period at the beginning, go to the next one, of 2020 when meetings and discussions between our groups were being held. And we had identified then that this extension, number 3 there, is the best place to start. It has the highest value and it has the least barrier to getting it done. I've made it my own.
I just monitor what they're saying.
Am I going too fast?
No, sorry, we're muting.
Just muting something.
Okay. I've made it my own personal goal to focus on this one and engage with the council process to see that this could be our first new track from the plan, which is constructed legally with cooperation between our community groups, but I have failed. Some things are still moving forward thanks to your board. But before construction of extension there, number 3 could begin, existing segments number 1 and 2, which lead up to it, improvements there were required. Number 1 is known as the zigzags. Those improvements were finished this past year. And segment number 2 is the diagonal track, which as of last year, your board approved moving forward with the upgrade. I am concerned based on what I hear. You can move to the next one. So that's requested for this year. You can go to the next one. What I heard this past Monday night was that it seems to be derailed and likely won't happen before the end of this term. Next slide. As you requested, a report was generated by an independent contractor. This is Graded Earth Tracks and Construction. They specialize in construction of shared use tracks. They've demonstrated excellent quality work in Vic Park, out in the Craggieburn Forest, and on the nationally recognized Paparoa Trail, and are currently building shared use track over in Orton Bradley Park to improve access for Mount Herbert. Next slide. Their report submitted by Graded Earth highlights the fact that not only is the current diagonal track too narrow for shared use, but it's also too steep for the appropriate grade. Additional length and at least one switchback will need to be added to achieve a 4 or 5 degree slope, which is necessary in order to comply with the multi-use aspect. You can go to the conclusion there. Next one. So that's what the report states. The RMC let their opinion be known that they are not supportive of this, and it appears that the plan has been taken back to the drawing board. Go to the next one. That's what happened on Monday night. And one more. I just wanted to say that we support the conclusions from Graded Earth and feel it would be a waste of time and effort to simply upgrade the existing path and lay gravel on top of it without first realignment. Now I'll move on to the question of the extension of number 3. That follows on from the diagonal track. It was the target of our petition, and ideally it should be considered in conjunction with the upgrade because when it's finished, they essentially become one continuous track. Next slide. That was our petition. You can go on. I do understand that you have to follow a process. You can't just approve a new track without getting a report from your staff. That's required, but it's not clear to me whether the report for this extension specifically has been requested. I'm not sure if that's in progress, just asking for clarification there. And my last point, the issue of maintaining the existing, sorry, a couple of extra slides there. That's just questioning whether that specific track got included in your request. One more. There we go. The issue of maintaining the existing tracks in the reserve. The club has for many years worked ad hoc to keep these tracks in good shape for our community. We know that you are, that quote is from your letter. And we know that you're supportive of this model and wish to see it continue. We've been working this past year, trying to come up with a formal process with the RMC for how that would work. Suddenly at our meeting this past Monday, that process was flatly derailed with them refusing to consider it. Go on, please. They're giving no further consideration and not prepared to proceed with that process that we've been trying to work on all year. Lastly, there are ongoing maintenance needs in the reserve. The club are working with LPC for the tracks that are on their side of the division. We have an agreement with them. Last slide. Perhaps your board could allow Paul Devlin as the head of the Rangers to meet directly with the mountain bike club as he has offered there to help create an agreement directly. Thank you.
Why your persistence?
Nice. So just a quick question, Scott.
Yeah, thanks for that, Josh. I feel as frustrated as you. So, but I know there's constraints and there's been weather issues and everything else. 2 things. That report from Graded Earth from Missy, did that include track 3 or was that just on track 2?
That's only on track 2 as far as I'm
Track
aware.
2. Okay, and did that have costings related to that?
There may have been an $8,000 figure somewhere in there, but I'm not sure. I'd like to get a copy of that forwarded.
Who commissioned that report?
I believe it came straight from Paul.
Okay, supported. Oh,
And
excellent.
he forwarded a copy of it, I believe, to the Reserves Committee during this past section. Although it was not copied directly to me, I had a paper copy, which I had to do some screenshots of for this. So I didn't have the official electronic copy.
Because the work they've done over in TAP is amazing. They've done some real good work, and the ECAN and Rangers think that they're the guys to go to. So
I love that. Yeah, I've seen them do great quality work in every place I've seen there.
okay, no, that was it from me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. We will, what's the next step? Let's just forward this information from Josh. Good chance to speak.
Next step, the board would like to do
Well, I'd actually like to
Yeah.
put some emphasis, sorry.
Yeah.
Could we put some emphasis on Paul's comment that he could work directly with the Manning Biking Club, or is that going to interfere with the RMC and how things are run? Because I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but I'd also like to, if the Manning Bike Club wants to do work and volunteer to improve things, then they should be given that right.
I mean, it's no different to how, I mean, Paul's been engaging pretty hard over the years, I guess, to different levels of success. It's, yeah, but I mean, as you say, like, it's like, here's a group of people willing to do stuff really well.
And want to work with the
And
council
want to
rather than
work with-
against them.
And all
Well,
the
in
all the
conjunction with-
stakeholders. Yeah, so what's the next step?
So you'd be happy for us to say that the board agreed to our staff to work with the Mountain Bike Club to
Yeah.
progress.
I'd be a bit
The board
concerned.
has actually already approved it through.
We have, and that's the thing, I mean, can we get an update on where we're at with that resolution, I guess, because we have already approved it. That to me is the next step, because what does that look like on the ground, since we have approved
But at the
it?
moment, because it's not the right weather,
No, obviously,
have had that feedback from the staff.
Can I just clarify something on process? These three, with the viewers. So obviously we've got a development plan in place, right? And I just want to clarify on something Josh said about reports needing to be, I just can't quite recall. So every time a new track has to go on, it has to go get the report and it has to come to the board. So it has to every time.
It does with this Zoom development plan. Because of earlier issues, the board did actually resolve at one stage that any new track should come to the board.
So it couldn't just be made by the RMC.
So the ones that from the existing development plan.
Yes. Yes.
So
They can just proceed.
No,
Right.
No,
no, that's my understanding is that the board said they wanted any new track.
Oh, I see. I thought new track was, my understanding of new track was always a track outside of the
proposed.
proposal.
A new track. My understanding of it was it was an unformed track.
Right.
So if they're informed and you're remediating it, doing it up, whatever, upgrading it, that's fine. But if you're actually making a new track, can we check?
so the new information we've got there is from Living Earth, Greater Earth, whatever they call
Which would
it,
be-
that has recommended a slight variation to the current proposal. So when is that coming to the board, should we allow for, a slight variation to the current proposal? I mean, that's new to me. I hadn't seen that, and I would have thought if that's the route that's going to happen, that at some point would need to come to the board.
I don't know that it does because I was also something else that, when you're actually there working on the ground,
You can make,
it might be a few metres that
Yeah.
way, like this
Yeah.
way.
I thought we'd given
Right.
Paul Devlin authority to solve this
Yeah.
issue and deal with this track and get it working and get it upgraded.
Yeah.
I can't
So
see why.
because
but he's
taking
got to
it.
step quietly too.
Nothing against you. I'm just
Okay.
saying
Okay.
you're
Okay.
Authority from the board because the board has already resolved
Yeah.
for the diagonal track to be formed.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's only the next one.
We're waiting for an update where we're at with that. Obviously, weather conditions, any work happening up there at the moment, but it'd be good to have an update and forward the information that Josh has
We
given us.
were waiting for the opinion of the Reserve Management Committee, but the opinion is that already.
They didn't have an opinion.
That was actually prior to the
Yeah.
board coming, the report coming to the board. Staff went to the Reserve Management Committee who said they didn't want any new tracks. And then the report came to the board. So the board took that into account when it made its decision, but it made the decision to ask staff to go ahead with that diagonal track.
Yeah, so that's already been agreed to be
Yes, the
made
board
and
has
get
already
get on with it,
resolved.
basically. Yeah.
Right.
I don't think it includes the third part.
Yeah, so
Right.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, we did sign off on a report for track 1, track 2, but not track 3, is that
Yeah, I
right?
don't think
Yeah.
track
Okay.
three.
So you have achieved
So
in
we're
the
just
last 3 years,
We're
track
just,
two.
we're just waiting for
Well
track
done.
2 to be put on the ground. Okay.
So how do we-
Hasn't been done yet.
Okay, thanks, Josh. We'll forward your information that you've given us today
Thank you
through to
very much.
staff, but we'll also ask for how everything's progressing
Yeah.
with staff. That's okay.
Because we support. We did sign off on a report for track 1.
Okay, sorry. Not sure it's feedback. happening here. Someone's listening on. Right, okay, so next, thank you, Josh, for coming on. Appreciate your
Okay,
time.
fine.
Okay, next on.
Sorry, can I just clarify, you want me to ask staff to work with on Victoria?
1 and 2.
I've already said
One's
one
already
has been done. One's been done?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's 2. And then, but also ask for an update of where they're at, advised.
Anything to progress things.
Could we throw in, and if acceptable, 3 at the same time, save coming back and.
Well, look at the
cause more
viability
paperwork
of
if
it.
they're there looking at
No, because
things.
you'd be making a decision.
Right.
Okay, yep.
Okay. We best carry on. I notice we have got a few people on Zoom joining us this morning. So next up, we've got Mike Norris, Harry Stronach and Victoria Andrews. Good morning to you all. Hang on, we're just waiting for the system to come. So that's okay.
Good morning, I have a technical issue. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can now hear you, Mike.
Thank you. Well then, thank you, Madam Chairman, for allowing the Akaroa Civic Trust to make a brief and urgent deputation on the subject of transport policy for Akaroa during the visit of cruise ships. You will have seen the excellent PowerPoint presentation that Victoria Andrews has prepared. Has everyone been able to see that or receive it? Because this is not a new topic. I know we are precluded from repetition of previous topics, but it has been dealt with in the past. And our concern is that the council seem to be under the impression there is no transport or traffic problem in Akaroa when multiple numbers of buses arrive to service the cruise ship passengers. And in my opinion, this is manifestly incorrect. And to have pictures of buses with their wheels on the pavement, trying to get past each other, is all there for you to see in this PowerPoint presentation. What I find really puzzling is that when confronted with this information, a council staff member said, well, I wasn't there when you took the pictures, so I can't accept what you're showing me, which is a bit akin to a police officer saying, I didn't see the car go off the road, although it's in the ditch, therefore it didn't happen. I would urge the council to revisit this scenario and accept that we do need a new transport policy. We've been told there is one coming, but the cruise ship season is about to descend on us. I do accept that there will be many fewer passengers coming ashore, smaller ships. So maybe a 500 passenger ship will have perhaps 200 people coming ashore. That could be 6 buses. But in addition to that, there will be the traffic generated by the Littleton terminal with eager sightseers wanting to come to Akaroa. So we don't believe this is something that has been properly addressed, and we would urge the community board to use its power to represent the views of the citizens, particularly the ones that the Civic Trust represents, that a solution needs to be found. Now, you may say it's not our job to come up with solutions, we only come up with problems. One of the solutions we've suggested is that use can be made of the recreation ground space. But frankly, what we're asking for is the buses to be kept out of the southern end of town by the wharf and smaller vehicles used which can safely navigate the narrow main street. And another point I would make, and I've made this in submissions to the council already, the very makeshift event signs that get erected with a tripod and sandbags straddling the footpath are very untidy and smack of a roadworks. I've suggested that the council investigate a more aesthetically pleasing system of perhaps retractable posts affixed to the footpath, but nothing on that score has happened either. So I'm sure Harry Stronach, on behalf of the ratepayers, will express their point of view, but we are frustrated that there appears to be no willingness on the part of the council staff dedicated to this issue to make any changes, because they believe that the status quo is working, and we say it's not. Has anyone got any issues they want to raise with me?
I don't think we've got any questions at this stage, Mike, but I'm happy to, if you're happy to stay around once we have heard from Harry, there might be further questions.
Will do, thank you.
Thank you. Harry.
Good morning. Well, I think everybody understands this proposal. You know, restrict large buses south of the rec ground, use the parking areas near the rec ground for the bus marshalling areas, use small shuttle buses into town. It's all quite simple. So is this a good idea? Well, among the residents, it is very enthusiastic and consistent support. Over the last few years, we have asked survey questions about this a couple of times, and we've had over 90% of people in favour. So, and a very consistent view that buses should be banished from the main street. Now, that's because of congestion, safety issues, and it all detracts from the character of the town. But what about the people on the buses, the tourists? So just think about why tourists come to Akaroa. The main reason is simply the nature of the town. Just think of all those adjectives that get used: cute, quaint, historic, charming, peaceful. Nobody comes to Akaroa because they want to see oversized buses squeezing down the main street. That sort of congestion simply ruins the very atmosphere that you're trying to preserve and promote. It's like a goose and golden egg story. You have a town with atmosphere, you try and benefit from it by attracting tourists. Nobody has a problem with that. But trying to get a benefit from that is one thing. That tips that over into exploitation. And in that process, you ruin the atmosphere for everybody. And we all end up worse off. The tourists are worse off because the quaint town isn't as quaint anymore. The locals are worse off. Where is the responsibility for making decisions like this? Well, one party that has a big ownership stake in the town is the ratepayers and residents. We pay the rates, and every year the number on the bottom of the bill is larger. And that simple fact gives us a big ownership stake in what happens in this town. And when I say ratepayers, we obviously include the business interests in town. Other parties have useful and relevant opinions, and they need to be taken into account. There needs to be discussion about details. How exactly do you define a large bus and so forth? Should there be seasonal timing on this? We come to the point of community well-being. That's a phrase that gets used by the council a lot. What does it really mean? Well, it means a community that's content and in control of its own destiny. And that's what we're aiming for here. And the residents are quite clear in what it is they want on this subject. And we are having our say via our elected representatives, this community board and the city councillors. I think it's inevitable that action will be taken to achieve better bus management in Akaroa. It's simply a question of when that action is taken. My question is this: is this the community board that is going to take action on this subject? Or are we all going to have to wait until a future community board takes action on this? Because it will happen. This is one of those situations where doing nothing is not an option. If you do nothing, it'll just foster resentment. So my message is this: take action.
Thank
Thank you.
you, Harry.
May I
Yeah,
add a
sorry.
comment? I attended a cruise ship debrief as a member of the Akaroa Issues Working Party in June 2019 in Littleton as the Civic Trust representative. I raised issues regarding cruise ships and buses and congestion in the town. And to a T, every staff member present said there were no problems in Akaroa relating to traffic or cruise ships. And I contested that and I continued arguing. Andrew Turner actually said, wait, there's something wrong here because I have ratepayers telling me there are problems in Akaroa, and yet on the other side of the equation, staff are of the view there are no problems. So this dates back many, many years, and the time to instigate an improved traffic management plan is now, not after the cruise ships start returning and not in 3 years' time. Jim Dilley told us, the harbor master told us at a meeting at the Akaroa and Bays Forum that I think at the time there were 80 cruise ships booked into Littleton. That number has gone up to 90 according to the Port of Littleton. And I think we have 18 or 20 booked into Akaroa. Those are relatively low numbers, but tourism is set to rebound in 5 to 7 years. We do not want to have an inadequate, insufficient traffic management plan now. We need to make improvements and put a trial in place now for the future of our town and for, as Harry says, for the community well-being and also for the pleasure and enjoyment of all of our visitors. And I would urge you to speak to Andrew Turner. I'm very sorry he's not present today because his history on this matter goes back many, many years. So I would encourage you to please be proactive on behalf of ratepayers as well as our domestic and international visitors. Thank you.
Thank you all three of you for bringing up that point. I am aware that there is traffic management plan being worked on at the moment. But if there's any questions from around the table for Mike, Harry or Victoria.
No, but can I speak to it?
You got a question, Scott? Question.
I haven't got any questions.
Actually, it's not for, thank you guys for bringing this up again. I don't have a question for them. I do have discussion on it, so I'll leave it for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
there does need to be some.
I do understand there's more information coming through from staff. So at this stage, what I can do is refer the information we received today through to staff, but we are due to get some further information very
So
shortly.
we will be able to make a resolution somewhere.
At this stage, all we can do with the public forum is refer this information to staff, but we know that there is more information coming to the board very shortly.
What is very shortly?
Yes, you know when? You give me information.
Because this board's dissolved.
Yeah, the cruise boats are coming in, what, September, October,
So
November.
nice to have some action from this board.
Okay.
I've just been told October's a little bit late because the board actually won't get operational.
That's right, we'll be gone.
We could follow this up in members exchange on behalf of the presentation,
Yeah.
couldn't we?
Well, that's-
No, you can't.
that's-
You can't make,
Oh.
resolutions about it because you don't have any staff.
Can we just request that staff follow up with the report on what they're actually going to do and get some
At the
action
next
going on it?
meeting?
Can we do that?
At the
We've
next-
already done that.
So when are we going to get a report?
There is,
It can come to the board for its information that the traffic management plan is actually not a delegation.
No, it's not.
But
more of an
but
information
staff
sharing
said
what it
it
looks
can
like.
come to the board for information and we'll get it to the September meeting.
Oh, the one in
Because
Grant?
there's some, yeah.
Yeah.
So keeping a buses out of the
Banning
township
buses
seems logical.
So we have got, okay, we're going to refer the information from Harry,
Instead if it's too late.
Mike and Victoria through to staff, and Liz was just saying that we are going to get further information, come back to this board before we dissolve.
Could we be kept informed, please? Ratepayers seem to be the last to know, and we
Yeah.
would appreciate some information.
I'm trying to get information through, so Harry, yep, thank you, Victoria.
And we can't refer it with any further commentary on our,
You can review, you can make some comments to start.
such as, this seems like an eminently sensible thing to do.
And as simple as banning buses from one end of town.
We've
should
got
be
a-
a simple-
We've been bashing this one
Yeah.
around
We
for a
have.
few years and there are sensible solutions there that have always seemed sensible.
You could
And-
refer it to staff and ask for information on what is happening.
Yeah.
Is that all the good?
Yes.
Is that as far as it goes?
Harry makes a bloody good point. If, staff are saying there's nothing wrong, but ratepayers are saying there is, then there is.
What's that section?
There has been issues in the past,
Let's
and
get some
what that looks
democracy
like on the
going.
ground, and like I say, we've got to get further information, and so from what I understand, that further information is going to come back to the
Staff
board.
are looking up to the information. And I must say too, the Accra Police agreed that it isn't.
Oh, right.
Okay,
One more paper.
we will, like I say, look forward to seeing that information, and we'll make sure that information gets shared once we do have it. So, no, thank you, Victoria, thank you, Harry, and thank you, Mike, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Right, okay, and the last one I've got on my list is Marcus. I did see you on the screen there. Marcus, are you still there? He's gone, okay. Shall we wait? There he comes back again. Okay. Marcus, are you with us? You just joining, okay.
Can you hear me at all?
Yes, we can. Wait.
Hi. I'm pretty new at
Can you
this.
just mute your live stream, Marcus? We get feedback from that. No, not you, your live stream that you've got on the background. Do you need to stop it? We'll turn it off.
I
Otherwise,
can't.
that's all we can hear.
Can you hear me at all?
Yes, yes.
So there seems to be a bit of a delay or something.
Mute your live stream, Marcus. We get feedback from that.
Oh, there's a big delay.
I'm sorry.
That's so the council consents or anything we say.
Marcus, you need to shut down your YouTube and then
I think I've done that now.
Thank you, Marcus. Yeah, perfect. So, right, you've got 5 minutes. So, welcome to board, and yeah, you've got something to share with us this morning.
Yes, well, it's an ongoing thing with the Okuti track, which is from Okuti Valley, goes up through the little dock reserve, and then goes up about a couple of kilometres until the road finishes, and then it turns into the walking track. And there is meant to be, it's a public road. Reserve Road is a public road, and yet there are 2 closed gates through it, which makes it, well, I don't think, from speaking to Alan Cameron, the roading guy, that any public road shouldn't have closed gates on it. So what I'm proposing, and have spoken to the rangers about and various council people, is that there needs to be either cattle stops put in, and this is from Alan Cameron, it's up to the landowner to either fence either side of the road to keep his stock off the road, or to put cattle stops in to stop the stock wandering out of their property. Because what's happening is that it's primarily a walking track, but it's also a mountain biking track, but you should be able to drive up to the top. And this is the thing that the council seem adamant that you are allowed to have closed gates on a public road. And this is what I've been arguing, saying, well, it's a public road, there can't be closed gates on it. So to me, it's pretty straightforward. But from what the rangers are saying, it's like, no, the gates can be closed. So whether it's about access, for us, for example, being able to drive up to the end of the road, to turn around and to use a public road as it should be. And for easier downhill and uphill for mountain biking and for the walkers, because I don't know if you know the history of it, there has been a real fight back from the landowners not wanting the track to be open because it goes through their property. But it has been, so it's a public road up to a certain point, and then it turns into a paper road. So I don't know what the argument is about this, why this private landowner is allowed to have closed gates on a public road. So to me, it's pretty straightforward that isn't a thing from what I've looked into. So that is one point. But I haven't, this has been going on for years, and over the last 6 months or so, I've asked on various occasions for something to be done about it, and yet nothing has. I barely get an email back from anyone. So whether I've been put on a blacklist for council response, but the council response has been nil pretty much, as in, let's just ignore them and the problem will go away. The problem isn't going away. And so this is why I have come to the community board to see that's my frustration of the council not doing what they should be, which has led me to come and see you guys.
So Marcus, to answer a couple of your issues raised, one, you haven't been put on a blacklist that I'm aware of, but I know staff were seeking other staffs for information. I know Liz has got something here for you. So I'll get Liz to read this out first before we take any further questions of Marcus, because this might enlighten a few questions that have been raised.
So this is from the Rangers. It says, we appear to have a functional working relationship with all the neighbours along the route who accept the agreed status quo after much negotiation. The gates are not locked, and some gates are needed on occasion for grazing or to exclude grazing animals from unfenced bush reserves. There is no safe drivable four-wheel drive route right through the track anyway, due to slips and instability at high altitude. There are very few safe or legal parking spots or practical turnaround points on the formed track. The track route does not follow the legal road all the way through, but is a practical solution accepted by the farmer involved, which we are keen not to disturb. We are reviewing the existing signs and assessing how we could possibly install ride-over cattle stops for mountain bikes to improve the riding experience. So pretty much you can have a gate over a legal road, it just can't be locked. And also, as they say, the road that is there now, the track that is there now, isn't on the legal road all the way. So it is actually on farmland for part of the way, because there are spots where it couldn't actually be physically formed. So this is a compromise with the landowner and council in the range of stuff. Okay, and you can walk.
So Marcus, from what I understand, that what Liz has just read out, they are trying to get that back to you in writing, so you can really see it yourself.
Yeah, but this is the argument that they are saying one thing, but it's not. To say that a public road, this is the thing, that it's a public road up to the end of where you can drive. So you can drive, and I would like to be able to drive up to the end of the road. There's plenty of turning areas. So, because otherwise, if the landowner, the Andrews, have the gates closed, it is effectively a private driveway that the council are maintaining.
I just say you couldn't drive all the way to the top, because some of it you would have to go over private property, because the road is not formed all the way.
Okay.
This is my argument, is that you should be able to
No,
drive.
that's, Marcus, we have had response from. Okay, thank you, Marcus. We do appreciate that's a concern. We have had information back from staff on the contrary. And so at the moment, I can't carry on any further. You are able to have gates across roads, however, they can't be locked for access.
I don't think you can.
So that's from what I understand. So no, thank you for your time. I do.
How do I then challenge this? Because to me that's incorrect. You can't have gates across a public road.
He can challenge that back to him and send it to the chief executive.
Okay, so Liz will send that information to you in writing, and then if you want to continue that, you can bring it back to the board, or you can take it up to the chief executive's office. So we'll put that information on as well. But
can I just ask one more thing in regards to the roading and the maintenance of, for example, Reserve Road? There has been no maintenance on it for at least 6 months, which we've been asking for. From that, if that maintenance had been done, the council would have saved themselves tens of thousands of dollars, because now the road is completely wrecked.
It's like that through a lot of the peninsula.
And what's happening about it? Just ignoring maintenance. What I'm suggesting is that the council...
I can't continue this conversation at the moment, so thank you, Marcus. We appreciate you coming to the board.
Thank you.
Right.
So just to clarify, he was representing just himself?
Yeah.
Well,
Anonymously, guys. Right. We've finished what we need to do.
So we'll send the information through and point out the steps if he wants to still continue that. But, you know, I'm happy that the information we have from staff is correct. We can get that.
Of course you can.
Right? It just can't be locked. Yeah. And as I said, the track does not go all the way up to
It's definitely
French
unformed.
Peak Road, because it goes over private property in different parts of it.
So my.
Yeah. Okay, so what do we need to do now? So we've forwarded, that is also going to be referred to staff. Yep, it's been brought up in the deputation for that to staff, the issues raised. Yeah. And can we also get that, what your written response that you've received, can they come forward to? So people can read that through later.
Just a
to
bit
get
of
clarification.
education for everybody, yeah.
Yeah, but no, like I say, it's nice for us to see sometimes in black and white what's in front of us. Tyrone, sorry.
I mean, fine, but like, I mean, it's like, we have processes and stuff, but like, how do we just, if there's a bit of dialogue required there, isn't there, between stakeholders, just that is kind of not able to be encapsulated in the processes that we've got. So how do we just kind of like, I mean, Marcus has got some concerns. He lives up there, you know, so he knows the area. And, you know, like, how do we just make sure that we just unpick some of the little
Bit of education, yeah.
You know, information going back to.
Well, I think with this information going back, and, you know, staff have been with it, otherwise the direct only does never stop.
Right, so we have got a few action points. Do you need anything further for us before we end the? No, like I said, I think for further information that's been provided to us and actually received the information that you've got.
I'm infected.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. That is the end of the public forum.
Nowadays, everyone's
I don't have
too scared to
anything
look
for
at you.
presentations this morning, presentations or petitions. So next up, I have got item 7, which is the board projects report. Right, good morning, Philippa, thank you. Welcome to the board.
This report before you today is for a formal decision to.
Louder, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. You need to just talk a bit louder because the microphone's.
Yeah, sorry. The report that's in front of you today is to formally nominate the board projects that for the 22-23 year. There are 2 that have been workshopped in May, towards the end of May. I want to draw your attention, those 2 are the Anzac Reeds and a small allocation of funding towards Diamond Harbour Anzac, and the second is the Summer with Your Neighbours application. Summer with Your Neighbours application as both have been previous board applications. I want to draw your attention to 310. The community grants budget has been amended upwards to $198,572, up $3,339.
That's right.
Pending, of course, any carry forwards. And yes, the both board projects have been agreed as part of unit work programs.
And I've been to 2 residents association meetings over the weekend, and they both said Summer with Your Neighbours, they'll be doing it again this year. That's great.
Yeah.
You know, it's brought a lot of the newcomers in the community out, and yeah, so fully support this, both nominations.
I think anything that brings life back into the communities is important, because, you know, all this COVID lockdown.
So I know last year we did increase the Summer with Your Neighbours budget because we had such good uptake. We still have that ability, once we find out that there is uptake for it, to increase that budget as we.
Is that from discretionary fund?
It's all from discretionary response fund, but we can add to it. At the moment, we're just giving that clarification that yes, that's already in the budget. We can, you know, if we find there is such a great uptake from the community, we can increase that for more people that are partaking in Some of the Neighbours. So,
What sort of formula do you decide on how much each community gets? Is it based on the number of people that are predicted to attend, a certain amount per person, or how it's worked out?
Yes, I understand that's the case.
Okay, so it's just per person.
I think it worked out about 210 to 250 last year.
What is that based on, per person, or $2 per person, or $5 per person?
there was a number figure that was used across the city.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just for Big Peninsula, it was
Yeah. I'm just curious what we.
Yes, it is per head, and it's something like, it's only about $2.50 or something like that.
Like a piece of bread and a sausage.
Just with inflation, I'd like to see it go up to say $3 so they
It
can actually
didn't
get a full
cover
sausage.
most things, but it helped.
For some projects, some things that are put forward, they're actually fully funded through that formula as well. So for some projects, they have big needs per person, and others they have smaller ones. So it's just as a contribution to enable people to get together.
No, it's a good cause. It's actually very good. It's
It was
possibly
great to see the further uptake last season. More of the community wanting to be involved in that. So we'll encourage that again. We have got recommendations here.
Can I just ask one more thing? What the board think about the reefs? Like the board buys a reef in Diamond Harbour and I lay it every year, and it's nice to have that. It is very expensive. Like, what is it?
My mother used to make the ones in Akro.
You do 4 of them. You do Upper Little River.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but the reefs themselves are phenomenally expensive.
About $150.
168.
That's all right. That's not too bad.
There was some.
Not like a stadium.
Some of the cost for last year was delivery.
Right.
Deliveries went right up.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because I noticed it was quite high compared to the year before.
$1,000 a year.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I'm all for it. I just wanted to bring that up because we are a budget conscious board.
And
we've got a stadium.
Don't want to like to save on delivery. I picked up both Akaroa and Little Rivers. So
well done.
that was to saving on delivery. So we do try and watch costs where we can. We have got recommendation in front of us. Okay, Scott's moving. Ruben is seconding. If there's no further discussion, all those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you. This is just for the nominations. There will be a report come before the board with the actual applications next month.
Thank you.
Sorry, what was the deadline they have to get?
Do someone with the others
I'm not sure I can send that information.
Okay, yeah. That's good.
but yeah, no,
It's a couple of months from the 15th.
They're open.
It was good to see it up on Facebook too. It's good to see it
It's
promoted.
It's in August sometime.
August, yeah. So
yeah,
it's
we've got
only-
to make the decision before we finish the board. So that comes to this board, doesn't it? Yeah. Yes. So that's. But
However, if someone was to apply later for a gathering like that, it would just be.
Come under the discretionary response fund. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, next one we have Andrew. What public transport infrastructure? Item 8.
I'll sit there. You can
Buses. We don't talk about buses very often around this board, but this is a
Every
good
time we
one.
see one, they'll say, yeah, not for him.
Bus. What's a bus?
Thank you, Ben.
All over in Akro. You see one.
Yeah. Well, that's the time we do talk about alternative buses, but anyway, public transport. So Andrew, welcome to the table.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sarah Thorne, Passenger Transport Engineer, is on leave, so couldn't make it today.
So we're stuck with
I'm familiar with the sites and have worked on and off with Sarah on these. Sam was led the consultation process. The report's fairly self-explanatory. I guess it's this in particular, the route, the 28 route to town is very different than the remainder of the route out to Rapaki. And this report also purposely doesn't include the Rapaki situation, which is still being discussed. The main problem with the Rapaki one is, as you know, getting people across the road. And the safest option is for people not to have to cross the road to start. So that's what those discussions with the Runanga are ongoing about. So many of these in this report try and formalise and make better existing situations, which you could probably describe at best as a bit haphazard as far as bus service. They're not particularly user-friendly, and it's also not very identifiable as bus stops and bus routes. So this is an attempt to bring it up to a reasonable and usable standard, and so hopefully more people can identify it and use it and access it, because this service certainly does need more people to use it. Otherwise, it's very difficult, I think, to justify some of those high frequency services, which is a bit of a chicken and egg situation, really, eh? And that's something which has been noted from ECAN, isn't it?
Yep.
It's typically had low usage.
A new bus space help though.
Yeah. So the other thing is, my impression of this route is that it's informal. Unless you're in the know, you're probably not going to interact.
Yeah.
Probably way to describe it.
See the bus go past you.
Yeah.
We have any questions, obviously. Go.
Do we have questions?
Just a query, obviously, this is a low use service.
Yeah.
Simply because, hey, we've got steep hills, we've got hard to get to the buses. People, the last step's the hardest.
Yeah.
Wouldn't this be a good opportunity for the council to work with Sorry. Felt like a criminal demanding your money. Wouldn't this be a good opportunity for the ECAN to trial a more, what I gather, they like the trialling in Timaru, more direct to people's homes, pick them up as they go around, more sort of, this is a perfect opportunity for it.
It would be an opportunity to try it. I haven't been involved in the discussions about what model they've decided on as part of reviews and that, but already I think the buses are a smaller size and a single driver, but I think they're still wishing to try and see if arguably the more efficient, if there's more people on it model rather than that on demand, which is another option too.
Just because the last 100 metres is the hardest part for a bus.
To the best of my knowledge, I don't think they're quite at that stage yet. I think they want to see how this goes because it hasn't been particularly well used, but also it hasn't been particularly well provided for over the years, arguably. But yeah, that's actually quite a reasonable option, that on demand service later on. The biggest cost is pretty much the driver though.
But then the driver goes out to a pack, he sits around for 20 minutes waiting, whereas he could drive around the road, come back, pick up people and carry on back.
I wouldn't discount the possibility of drivers occasionally dropping people off outside their houses anyway.
Yeah. That's true.
Okay.
No, thank you. Yeah.
Ruben, you've got a question.
Just a question on page 37, the Dublin Street bus stop, and just because there's someone stopped me on the street about this one, which generally means it's a pertinent issue. Which was there's a proposed bus stop seat. There's an existing bus stop seat there currently, I think.
Oh yeah.
But there's an opinion, not necessarily expert, that it's probably the most underused seat in the world because that's a bus stop that you only get off at in Littleton. You never get on at that bus stop because you will just literally be driven around Littleton and then sit on the wharf for 20 minutes before you come back to the city. So the suggestion was of all the bus stops, you wouldn't put a seat at that bus stop. There would be other bus stops that would need a seat more than that one.
I haven't been privy to serious discussions about whether it warranted a seat or not, but if I could speak briefly on a related topic, that stop will form quite a key part of the shuttle bus service for the Littleton cruise ship buses, in which people will be
Shuttle bus?
The shuttle bus which links the terminal around the township in Littleton and back. So that would actually be quite an important stop for those passengers waiting to get back on the
My ice cream stand.
bus back to the terminal. So I think it would actually have a secondary benefit at this stage, from what I can tell.
Good insight. Thank you for that insight. I appreciate that. That does shine a different light on it.
Yeah. And I guess the related planning around those services, including the services through to the city on those cruise ship days, will be, I guess, available to you soon.
Also thinking of that bus stop there, what is the pedestrian linking through to Tiana? Because obviously that's a fairly busy road. Is there pedestrian crossings at that end to get the other side of the road, or vice versa, from the other side of the road to there?
There is a signalised crossing by the Fisherman's Wharf restaurant. And that actually does link right through back to the walkway to Tiana, which will also be important for Sail GP.
Yeah.
So there's a few of these things that are coming into play as to why that site will be more and more relevant.
Okay. No, like I say, for me, that's the visible thing to you think going to Tiana and no point and all that kind of linkage. Okay. Any further questions on this report?
Yeah, there's an illegal car park on Britain Street bus stop. 35.
I mean, the satellite image,
Yeah.
it's probably moved.
Yeah. We'll go back to the resolution that I have on this report.
That one.
They're all proposed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So we
Any
got
further
caught.
questions for Andrew or Sam?
If I could just,
Yep,
add
yep,
one more
Karen.
thing, sorry, Madam Chair. I think it is worth acknowledging the Norwich Quay situation, because there has been discussions with the bakery about it, and I know Sarah's had correspondence with Bree, and before that, I've had discussion with Ian, the bakery. It is a very informal situation at the moment, and there's like a triple bus stop. That's a hangover from old cruise ship days where the buses would stop and lay over there, which isn't going to be needed this time around. Also, it's one which makes it hard for the regular bus service because it's so informal. People tend to park on it, particularly on market day. So what this does is shortens the bus stop up. There's a new shelter provided, and I know there's been some quite good discussion with David and Heath, the Bundy that own that property number 9, and I think they're actually supplying some historic photographs to go on the back of the bus shelter, and Sarah's trialling a historic information bus shelter. And I think the photos are actually related to the what that building was, which I think was an old post office originally. So, but what it does do, if you note, is it keeps, retains P10 parking, but also provides unusually and quite rarely done proposed heavy vehicle parking. So that should hopefully free up that space for those large trucks that stop to go and get their pie and things like that there, which I guess kind of happens now with a very large bus stop, but it makes it more enforceable and hopefully will work better. But we think that's the best arrangement in a quite unusual situation, really.
As per a lot of things, if feedback comes through that it's not working, it can be revised and adjusted.
One of the criticisms was around currently the P10 is right by the zebra crossing and arguably a shorter walk to across to number 8. But if you look where the P10s are now, they're pretty much opposite number 10. So we consider it sort of a negligible difference in terms of distance. Many people cross the road informally there anyway. Yeah.
And now I did notice through the report that a lot of information has been forwarded to ECAN for further, obviously, feedback from the community.
On the analysis that should have been attached, there is some comments from ECAN on there as well. Not all, just the ones that have come out of the consultation.
The snippets.
Yeah. So we've got responses from ECAN from.
But that's I guess it's up to the board and the local area to keep advocating for different things. I mean, one thing is that advocating for bike parking and that kind of stuff on the other side of the tunnel, which is an ongoing concern for a lot of people here in Littleton.
You would have seen that mentioned.
Yes, I did. I did. So central health kit, so it'd be good to find out when that's actually going to happen. I'm sure the board would like to, because it'd be good for the board to have some sort of, even just to advocate for the community.
Be August, September time, I'd say that's going to the going to them.
Maybe link into that, like I say, advocate for the community for their concerns. But it's been raised through this and numerous times around the board. Okay, so we have got quite a large resolution, but it is pertaining to all the images. Does anyone have any further questions? If not, I'll ask for a mover, please. Ruben to be to move and Tyrone to be to second.
Could leave it to the Littleton to make the decision. That's good.
It's going to be the greatest bus route in the world. When this, we can replace it piece by piece.
I hope if he doesn't get it right, they don't get it right for our one.
I'd like to get it to Diamond Harbour.
28A, isn't it?
Maybe steps further around.
Yeah. So we have got the resolution, got a mover and seconder. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye. Is it a falling for you?
Opposed? That is carried. Thank you both for your time this morning. We appreciate you coming along.
So I've recorded your answer that we're going to get a bus stop in Diamond Harbour.
I didn't say anything.
Yeah, you did.
Rightio. So
Thank you.
thank you for that. Now we move on to elected members exchange. Karen's been away for a while, so I guess you don't
Come
have
to me last. I've got
Yeah.
a couple of
Oh, you
things,
got a
but I
couple of
just need
things.
to
Okay.
just.
No
compose
problem.
myself.
Okay, Ruben, you got anything to share for members exchange?
Yeah, I've got three things.
Okay.
The first thing, and I don't think, I was trying to remember this morning, we haven't had a meeting since, but I don't think we have, was the felling of the yew trees off Winchester Street. So.
Oh, yes, I have seen it come through.
Yeah, so I don't think we got anything notification wise at board level, and local residents didn't get anything other than the noise of chainsaws. And when they went to see what that was all about, there were trees cut already down to street level. The reason given was that it was obstructing a stop sign. You could move a stop sign, and in fact, a stop sign had been fitted in front of the tree already anyway, so there were two stop signs.
I understand it was because the tree was diseased.
That was the later answer given, but the first one was that it was obstructing a stop sign. The other thing was that, so their understanding was that only one, the residents' understanding was that only one tree had gone, but when I went out to have a look, there was a second tree that had gone, and there's also someone undertaking the building project in the street who had to go to extreme lengths to erect a fence to protect one of the other trees when they were moving stuff on and off site, because they've been told they were historic trees that needed great care and maintenance to be taken around them. So I guess it was more a kind of a communications and process, like if they are dangerous and need to be cut down, but it just felt like there were lots of reasons given, which is never a good sign, because you usually only need one reason. And yeah, just the process wasn't great, and people were upset as a result because it's the only tree line street in Littleton. The other one was on the good news front, was that new bus.
Can I just interrupt? Do you want to ask staff about that?
Yeah.
More explanation?
Yeah, I think that would be good, because I think people are curious as to why.
I think the board and neighbours should think.
Yeah. The other was just to acknowledge the success of two local residents who engaged really hard with, or who made contact, and then who went to ECAN and fought really hard for ECANs to get a better bus service out of Parky and Cass Bay. And Tyrone and I got into Cass Bay in darkness this morning to discover that you need a Metro card to ride a bus, but luckily Tyrone had one. Thanks, Tyrone, for shouting. And
teamwork makes the dream work.
yeah, and there were about 15 local teenagers who piled on that bus to connect into a bus that would get them to school at a reasonable hour. So that was awesome, and full credit to Luana Swindells and Kathy Webb, with two who fought really hard for that to happen. And it's great to see that day one it's well attended by kids and their parents, who tomorrow will sleep in when the kids don't. And then the only other one was really to follow up on with the recent tunnel closures, and that coincided with Dyer's Pass being closed as well. It meant that there were some evenings where, if you wanted to get from this side of the harbour into town, it was Evans Pass. And then more recently, in the rainfall, we had Evans Pass closed for 3 days with obviously no one knew it was going to happen because it was rockfall. We closed it, but there were no pre-warning signs. It was basically, if you were coming from Sumner, you got to the very bottom of Evans Pass before there was a sign that said road closed, with no rationale as to why it was closed, just the road closed sign. Similarly on this side, and there was no communication to say for this long or for that long. So there were all sorts of theories and stories as to, as you can imagine, Facebook steps in, as to when and why, when it might reopen, why it was closed. But also it highlighted that if, due to what was an actual or perceived lack of coordination between the Dyer's Road closure and the Dyer's Pass Road closure and the tunnel closure, if Evans had closed at that same time as well, we would have been to Gibby's to get into the city, which is insanity. Someone who needs to get to Sumner for a swim every morning.
So from what I understand, speaking to staff at the Dyer's Pass Road drop-in session in Governor's Bay, Dyer's Pass is the alternative route for the tunnel. So when the tunnel is closed, Dyer's Pass has to be opened. So even though they've got closed for roadworks, they have to, in their traffic management plan, be open should the tunnel be closed for whatever reason, because it is the alternative route for, I mean, yes, there is Gibbies and the rest of it, but it is deemed a alternative route for the tunnel. So the nights that they had to have the tunnel closure for their works they were doing, they had, by mandate, have to have the road open.
Right.
So if that's going to come up again in the next 6 months while they're doing the roadworks this time, once again, they have to be open the nights. But it is from that midnight to 6 a.m, whatever it is.
12 to 5. And they were opening the tunnel on the hour, but there was just the comms from like Tahi wasn't clear enough to say that Dyer's Pass would be
Is the
open.
alternative.
And also that it was two-way traffic on the hour, because some people were like, what if I could get 5 past and I missed my chance? And lots of people who work shift started messaging in the com.
It is, and that's what the impact has been, is the shift workers from Governor's Bay and the rest of it as well. When the road is closed, the alternative would be the tunnel, but if they don't know that with the tunnel being closed, Dyer's Pass has to be opened. That is to do with communication. So yes, I agree. Further information needs to go out to the community.
So is that something we can, as a board, we can get the message to Waka saying, just to like over communicate on what's happening?
Especially when there's a lot of confusion going on with a lot of different works.
Yeah.
During the storm event last week, one of them, there was concern that the tunnel was closed and Dyer's Pass had slipped and was closed, but it wasn't. It was just at the time. So really disappointed to hear about the signage on Evans Park. So there was nothing on the Sumner side to say.
There was nothing to warn you. It was just when you got, so like you would get all the way through Sumner.
Yeah.
And there was also nothing, because there's an electric sign on the end of Ferry Road, the Ferry Road roundabout, where it goes onto the tunnel road. And there's a sign there that gives you because of the Monks Bay Road works, it gives you the 2 times. So it gives you the option to travel through Littleton to Sumner, option to travel directly to Sumner, because often it's faster to cut through Littleton. But what they didn't put on that indication sign, they didn't show you the travel time for Littleton, but they didn't say no access via Littleton. So if someone had established a habit of cutting through Littleton because it's faster, they would have discovered it was significantly slower.
It wasn't just Littleton though. After the significant weather throughout the bays, we noticed signage was missing on a lot of things. Like that Ross Parade that I was talking to you about, there was no signage. They just put a couple of cones. So if someone shifted those cones and the road was unwinded. Same with the power lines down in Diamond Harbour, there was no signage, no cones. It's pretty.
Someone shifted the cones in Sumner, so it looked like you could do
Drive through,
one-way traffic. So then some people thought, I'll just duck around. You couldn't, because the slip was right across the road.
Thank you, Ruben. Like I say, we've raised a few issues to continue with. Anything else?
That's me.
That's you. Howard.
Well, with Ruben's beautiful introduction, I thank you for that. We'll carry on with the roads. It seems to be the agenda in this thing.
It's a thing going through, yes.
Yeah. Basically, it's just more confusion than anything. If we can get a bit of clarity on the Dyer's Pass, the sign currently says that the road is closed, 7:30 through to 6 a.m. and it flashes over 3 pages. So you've got to stop at that corner to wait for the pages to roll through, which is rather annoying. But if we could add actually that it's either open or closed, so that actually people actually can clearly see that it's, hey, look, it's open at the moment or it's closed at the moment, or when it's open, if we can add a time to city, a travel time, that would be really handy. What the community's asking for is a bit of clarity, because they see the sign and they've had so many false readings, there's no actually belief in it. So what we're trying to do.
Facebook, isn't it?
Yeah.
When 7 o'clock comes Facebook, is it closed, is it open?
Yeah, so what they're wanting is a bit of clarity. Look, we get there, there's big closed. Right, we know it's actually closed rather than go up there and then find it's actually open.
So
yeah, a bit more
first 2
clarity.
days there was issues with the signage, and they had to get technicians out on the ground because the sign was reading closed when it was actually opened, and yeah, that's really confusing and doesn't leave a lot of trust in the system. But I know they've been working on it quite hard.
So is this the same sign that they said they're going to have signs this time that they can turn on and turn off with the lights from the town?
How do you mean?
Well, they said that they learned from
At
last
the
time.
bottom,
everything-
at the bottom, the foreman on the ground has access to say the road is open because they're stopping works or whatever, or the road is
Yeah,
closed
yeah.
because
They said they
it is
could do it
closed.
remotely though. so,
Yeah, they can. However, those first 3 days
Stuff up.
they had issues and had to get technicians because something wasn't working right within the system. So yes, that's really confusing for the residents to go, well, they told us it was going to be. It is, however, those first few days, that first week on site is still getting.
Hang on, we've moved on from that. What we're doing, we're making suggestions now. We're not
Yep.
going back to back what was done. What
No,
we're
no.
asking for is, can we get more clarity saying, yes, it's open, no, it's closed. Yes, the travel time is so-and-so because of blockers up there, a bit more information and not 3 pages. You know, have it on 1 page so I can drive up there, see it's clearly there. Or
Open,
something.
but yeah.
Yeah, so I know they had faults and they fixed that and the guys are going to check it to make sure it's thing, but what they're asking for is a bit of clarity because, and for people, the community to actually believe it, it's going to take a bit of time. But, you know, if we get clarity, there will. And on the clarity issue, still on the roads, because they're such wonderful things, the roads are absolutely shocking around the harbour. Akaroa Hallswell Road. Is it? Yeah, is it 80 or 100 Ks?
It's still 100, it hasn't changed.
Yeah, well, I was down there the other day and all the signs are covered. Now, I'm pretty sure that's very dangerous and
No, the
wouldn't
new
it be illegal?
signs, they're the new signs going in for the 80.
There's no actual there's no actual sign saying 100 Ks anywhere on that road.
Yep, there's still the existing, the D, the D.
Is it the unlimited K sort of thing?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
driving the conditions up to 100. So those, nothing has changed. All I've done is put some shrouded signs up ready for when it switches back to 80.
Oh, well, we can get really excited with these Christmas presents.
Which will be early.
It was actually quite confusing travelling from my place to Taitat because you didn't know what speed you were supposed to be doing because there was actually no speed signs and we're doing 80, is your cop doing 100, what's the story? So like I say, just a lack of clear information on what's going on. But apart from that, everyone's quite happy. They're cold, they're miserable, it's raining. It's winter.
Thank you, Howard. Jamie, since you're there, have you got anything you want to share? I'll catch you while you haven't got too many people in the shop.
No, very quiet day over here so far. No, look, nothing from me. I did touch earlier on about that, the bus parking. I know Nigel and I have had a lot of discussion about it and look forward to seeing what comes back from the staff, sooner rather than later, obviously, with as the term starts to draw to a bit of a close. So, but apart from that, no major issues at my end. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Nigel.
Another segue. Just a little commentary on the parking. We've got a rare opportunity in Akaroa to make a huge difference to the damage the buses are doing to interfering with up Balgary Street and parking around the roads. A park and ride for buses trial would be a huge thing to get over the line. There is a will to do it. I've had even ADP talking, Akaroa District Promotions, agreeing in principle to it, but it shouldn't be done in a way that's going to deter tourists coming to town. But there's a real opportunity while there's only 6 or 8 buses coming from town proposed to get something in a trial over the first season to get this going forward.
Can I just ask with that park and ride, do you mean they park at the end by the old?
We come into.
Yeah, and then ride to the town.
Yeah.
Easy Valleys.
No, more they can walk.
Yeah, it's not. It's not
No,
that
no,
far.
no, but there is the issues of being able to manage the tourist providers too, the tour providers. I know Pahara Penguins would probably use some of the vans to do that. They did it with the Po Blessing and the Akaroa Hop and Ride. They had a good shuttle service going that day, shuttling 100 or so people up and back around town. So it's a good opportunity to really have a good look at that. So I really hope that Andrew comes back with something positive, especially after the meeting and the briefing we get next week.
I think we're all in support of that.
Well, I absolutely hope and believe we are, because
it's a clean solution.
Yeah.
I was a bit disheartened with Andrew, who, I believe everything he says, sitting there shaking his head going, there's no issue.
We all know there's been issues and we have.
First thing he ever said to me,
Sorry, no.
first thing he ever said to me at our induction was there is no issue with parking in Akaroa. I thought that's a good way to open up our relationship.
Anyway.
Anyway, going forward. That's
No, okay, Emma.
right.
Anything else?
Yes, just one other thing. The memorial chair on the wall. Now, when this came up, I was a little bit anxious because I didn't know if there had been any previous people requesting memorial chairs on the wharf. There are no memorials on the wharf. And I had a couple of irate calls over it and thought that we could try and expand on the concept of having maybe like a rest area on the end of the wharf, so using the old timbers and having a place where people can put plaques for skippers that operated off that old wharf that are no longer with us as a memorial.
As opposed to just the one.
As opposed to just the one. And maybe that discussion, if we take that discussion forward to staff, I guess, with the wharf project, Chris said, and the team.
So I know that information got forwarded to staff for further feedback, and I guess throughout the design, it would be, yeah, and that was to ask what that process looks like and what feedback we give to that process. And
I hear that, and I'm just adding to that. Okay.
No, it's like I say, valid point. Hopefully we'll get further information back from staff regarding that.
That's great.
Anything else then, Nigel?
No, it's pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty good, thanks.
Scott.
Well, what's to say, the weather events. There were some hairlines down and outside my driveway, actually, the other day. So we couldn't go anywhere along with neighbours, and it closed the road, Marine Drive, and it just showed how fragile the system is. Cars had to turn up and go up Waipapa and then through Bayview, which is an unsealed road, to get to, and then right around to get to the ferry. So it added probably 15 minutes onto their journey over an unsealed road, which is now stuffed from all the traffic going over it. So the communication to the community and like Ruben brought up, the signage just wasn't there. Like I basically, without my Facebook page, nobody would have known. There's queues and queues of cars just parked outside the fire, going, what's going on?
Warning, climate change happening.
Yeah. So
the signs have been there.
I mean,
Why are they not there now?
Okay.
I went so far as to go down to Charteris Bay at high tide to just take some photos to say this is what it's like, because it was flapping over the road. But if you can get through. If you can't, please don't bother. But there just seemed to be no. I know Philippa had emailed most of the community residents and that was great. I thought that was really good. Unfortunately, they didn't, and that was brought up at the meetings. They didn't have a phone tree anymore. That's gone. They didn't know how to contact a lot of their residents, and with the weather, they didn't really want to venture out into it. I'm not sure how we evolve with that, but having that communication is a must. Goss Bay was a perfect example, especially since there's no civil defence anymore.
I mean, there's almost endless places on the peninsula where
there needs to be something. So, and whether that's connectivity with the mobile phone network or I don't know. But
that preemptive stuff was really good. Though, like I said, I got an email from Residents Association saying these are the numbers, these are the things that we're expecting. Like preemptive comms.
It was good. Yep.
Is there other people out on the peninsula? Sorry, Scotty, but like there are plenty of people that still can't get a mobile phone reception. I did right. Even where there are
half of Pure don't get reception right
at your way as well.
What part of the city that doesn't get mobile phone? You've got to be kidding me.
So I don't really have. I just wanted to bring that up because the connectivity in communities is a big must, especially with these weather events going to get worse and worse. It also highlighted the fact that there is a single road that connects these communities, and that was pretty close to being washed away.
Is it possible, sorry to interrupt, but is it possible for staff to access the local Facebook pages where the information seems to come from, rather than having the public actually put the information, the staff coming back and saying, look, there's flooding, because these events aren't often, but putting it rather when they put it on their page, it also automatically goes to the various Facebook pages at the same time, something along those lines to keep people informed.
So, I know for a fact that the council have been putting on
That's about
information
severe.
on the residents' pages. So there might be one or two that I've missed because they haven't been linked into those resident pages. But a lot of the
We can't
main
cover
ones,
everything as well.
a lot of the main ones, they have forwarded that information. So when we've had flooding warnings, and I know there was comms that have come out yesterday regarding the event that's going to happen later on this evening, which is tomorrow, there has been information being passed, and I'm going to talk to that in a minute. But yeah, perhaps there's a couple of residents' pages that information is not getting to purely because they're not linked in. And that's because of the admin either hasn't linked them into the private group or they've given as much information as they can to the main pages, like the Residents Association page. So I'll let Scott finish and then.
Yeah, okay. Well, luckily I had 5 staff off with the weather, so they got on chainsaws and started chopping trees and helping the fire brigade out, so it's quite good. Puro Residents Association on Sunday, which is really good turnout. We're looking forward to summer with your neighbours. A few things with that is, with that severe weather, there's been quite a few trees that have been earmarked by the residents that are pretty shady, especially down by the boat route there on the right. There's a heap of pines that they're looking pretty dubious of falling on the road. There's a pine opposite Brian's place, so I'll have to put that on the map because I know where Brian lives. But and there's a big blue gum down by the jetty that's hanging on. That if that goes, it's going down on jetties or cars or people.
If you could do a map.
And highlight, that's what I thought. Yeah, cool. Okay, I'll do that. The other thing is, could we get a council staff member to take a look at the bridge abutment at Puro, because I haven't seen it, but apparently there's all the reinforcing steel missing a bit of concrete on the yeah, and it's exposed, which means if that keeps rusting, it's going to crack the concrete. So it's better to repair it now than later.
Has anyone done a CSR? Or
Yes, yep. I asked them, all the community members, to all go down there as a team and take a Sarah yesterday. While we're on Puro, can we get a I don't know, what's it been, 9 years? We've had 2 portaloos down there that we're paying for, that the community's paying for, instead of fixing the toilets. I know there was an issue around land in the iwi, but it's been 9 years. I think it's just been put in the back closet and forgotten about. Because, you know, they were thinking of holding their Summer with Your Neighbours down by the foreshore, and then it got brought up, oh, well, you know, there's 2 rusty old portaloos that. So can we just follow up, see what's happening, and who do we need to put the foot into to get some movement?
When's the new one due?
It's not.
Oh, it's cancelled.
No, it was all budgeted and then it got put on hold, I think.
There is still issues.
Judith said it could be a flooding zone.
There's still.
Sorry, I thought.
So there's nothing actually wrong with the old toilets. They just, because the problem is it's got a septic tank. Which is in a flood zone. I mean, for the, what is it, $60,000 it's cost for the 2 portaloos, it's ridiculous.
So do we still have an open report about Puro?
I thought I'd seen, there was actually a report still laying on the table as far as.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
aware.
what I thought too, regarding the issues that are.
Actually, so we can do that as a formal action. if you like.
Yeah.
No, so
Start to
that
follow
was
up
where they
with
were originally going to build the new ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said that it could have been old bones and all that, then it's proven that it's flooding, and so
Yeah.
they shifted where they.
I thought I
Okay,
had seen
that's
something
still open from what I understand. There's
Okay,
still a
well-
report on the table that's open that we need to chase up.
We didn't receive any notice for that.
So is that you for now or anything else?
That will be me, thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Tomorrow? You said you had something, right?
But actually, Scotty, just if I may, just on the vulnerability of the road round Charters Bay and stuff, like serious question, like how does that impact the viability of the internet going through there?
Really well, actually. So speaking of the community, and especially some of the, on the slide, the staff from the Sea Level Rise Adaptation Team, that road is not going to be an access road for the community. It just can't be. They don't have the funds to build an infrastructure to protect the road and keep using that road. So they're going to have to shift the road, which means that could be the head-to-head walkway.
Interesting.
They literally, there's no way if the sea level keeps rising, that they can keep that road. Fun to repair it, put a bloody wall up, you know, it's just uneconomical for the amount of residents on the peninsula. So, and if the Hunters Road gets developed, they're going to need a better road in and out anyway. So you're going up and over. Brian's happy to sell some of his land to the council for going rate, and a brand new road above sea level.
So it's evolving.
Yeah.
Let's
And
go.
lots of little conversations in the back.
It is. So just a couple of things. So just on roads. Actually, more specifically footpaths. So a couple of different separate issues have cropped up. Like so a footpath that's still blocked off up on Ripon Street because of a retaining wall being held up by supports. How do we get a sort of a view as to, like, you know, what the timeline is? This is outside 20 Ripon Street.
Is it who owns the property?
I don't know.
It's a private property.
Well, no, but the supports are on the road outside, like on the footpath.
Yeah, okay. So
Now, the
private
person who lives next door is actually mobility impaired and can't use that footpath and never has been able to. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, what the process is.
Staff should be able to tell you that. They should have you should have a meeting on that, wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, they would have got a notice to fix. Yeah, that's why it's got a support taken on it from the
I
council.
mean, it's been 11 years since you've fixed. I'm just kind of
Yeah,
wondering what-
so it's, you need to follow up through the council,
We can do an action, and that's all.
because it is on the
Just all
landowner.
of those types of things, including, like, we haven't had an update on the mitre for a while. Which is the second point that I wanted to raise. It's like, here's another footpath that's basically being held to ransom by a private property owner.
Yeah, well,
You know, it's yeah. So I mean, it would be quite good to get a sense of, like, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know, that there are bound to be other examples around the board that, or around the peninsula like that. So it'd be just quite good to know
We can lump
where we
those two
stand on
together
these kinds
anyway
of
and,
things.
and ask.
Yeah.
Because they both use paper, right?
Yeah.
There's a real sense of frustration within the community about the lighting from a eyesore perspective, but mostly from just a safety perspective. Cuts out sight lines, it's really dangerous for pedestrians. Pretty annoying.
Does the council have a policy of, or, you know, that it's been 11 years, the earthquake's starting to get a bad reason for an excuse?
use COVID.
There is
Oh, okay, they're using COVID now,
there
okay.
is that rates thing that Jake pushed through.
Yeah.
Outside of the city, sort of dirty dozen thing.
Does it affect outside of the city though?
Yeah,
Oh, it does.
it does now.
Oh,
I
right.
mean, we need to start getting these things sort of tidied up, really, basically. Yeah. So they're probably the main things. Ruben's brought up a couple of things. Yeah, the trees on Winchester Street, primarily. So that's really, and I just to close, I just want to say, I've just may have escaped your attention, but I've just been over in Europe, and geez, I've been primarily in Poland, and geez, they got a lot of cycleways over there, eh? Like loads of them, and like I'm thinking, here's a communist era country that's just got up and done it, and just
That's
put
exactly
cycleways
how
in.
they did it.
No complaints.
Yeah,
You know,
communist state didn't cost them.
I do actually bust a bit, I do project to one of our members coming back in the middle of winter with a friggin' suntan. I think it's a bit insulting.
just my natural colour.
Right, okay.
Take up skiing.
I've got just a couple of things before we close the meeting. Flooding issues has obviously been a hot topic over in Little River as well. With photos coming through of more damage to properties. I know there is meant to be a hui on the 7th of August. But obviously having another rain event come forward for the next couple of days is not helping the fact that we're already saturated and rivers are already quite high. So there is ongoing concern. That's someone's one. So the ongoing concern, and last week I did have to go through floodwaters. They hadn't quite shut the road, but it was pretty dubious at one point. So having those comms come through, and I know the local police and the local Facebook pages are trying to share the proper information as much as possible when they do come through. So big shout out to comms within council, and also because we are getting these warnings. I know we got one yesterday for the next couple of days. There's going to be another high rain event, so we've got to watch out for more issues that have come around that. So I appreciate the council are trying to get ahead of it. The only other thing I've got to share is that I was in a meeting with ECAN a week ago, just regarding the septic tanks and buildings flat and their consent to discharge. They have found within their documents, and they're just going to be all clarified, but they don't need to seek re-consent for the septic tanks as long as they fit the criteria. So at this stage, it is deemed a permissible activity as long as the tanks were installed in the right conditions. They haven't altered anything to do with their property. So if they've added a sleep out, that's obviously altering the property. Therefore, you've got to seek a re-consent for that. And it's being maintained properly. So if there's certain criteria met, ticked off, you don't need to seek re-consent for a permitted activity. That is up until the year 2013. So anything that's gone on since then will come under new legislation, and after 15 years, do have to seek re-consent, re-consent, all that kind of thing. But as my question going to staff at the moment is that's in 6 years' time, what does that look like? So that's ongoing questions, but in the meantime, everyone that's having to either put in a consent at the moment have had their money come back and their consents are no longer needed because there's a permitted activity as long as they fit the criteria. So it's a relief, because at one stage you've heard that money to get new septic tanks because those older styles might not be no longer considerable. Like I say, there is good news in a lot of the sense. However, there's bigger discussions we had. In the meantime, the 40-odd households that got told that they may need to consent can be deemed a permitted activity as long as it, So all that information is going out to the locals this week, hopefully, in written form, and they're still going to have the drop-in session to answer ongoing questions. So,
Sorry, Madam Chair, can I just check what year you said?
2013.
2013.
So anything prior to 2013, if your septic tank is still being used, is still being maintained, it is being used at the rate it was consented with, whatever that is, it is deemed a permitted activity. After 2013, you do have to seek more consents, but that has been made quite clear to people that have put in septic tanks since 2013 because there's change in legislation. And no one's saying that legislation won't change again later on, but in the meantime, everyone prior to 2013. So that's a kind of a relief. It is a funny one, and it's
the
ongoing
older tanks are the ones that leak.
Yeah. So I think there's still going to be some look at the area and what that's doing. Nobody wants to affect the health of the lake any further, but that also brings up the other question as to what's happening further upstream. And it's all around the Peninsula. But in the meantime, like I say, it's a bit of relief that these retired people that perhaps have bought properties in Birdlands Flat don't have to then go and sort out a resource consent. So good news, that information is going out to the community this week. So on that note, I'll keep you going. Close, please, further. You to close the meeting.
Kia whakaria te tapu, kia wātea ai te ara, kia tūriki whakataha ai, kia tūriki whakataha ai, haumie, hui e,